I've always been upfront with the people I choose to be with. My last relationship ended in a way that completely surprised my fiancé, our friends, and even family. My ex was the type of person who was meticulous, reserved, and serious, qualities that I admired at first. But over time, her need for everything to be planned and controlled started to get on my nerves. There was no room for spontaneity. No impromptu dates, surprise purchases, or unplanned actions. Even our future together was mapped out in detail. Our wedding and kids were scheduled years in advance. It all felt too much. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. When she started to squeeze even our romantic evenings into a rigid timetable, I snapped. After a candid conversation, I packed my bags and moved out. The first few weeks were a bit uncomfortable, honestly. Getting used to my new rented apartment and my bachelor status felt strange. But after a couple of months, I started to settle in. I met some of the neighbors and got comfortable with my new life. One neighbor in particular caught my eye, a stunning blonde who lived just down the hall. She always seemed cheerful, with a bright smile and an expressive way of talking. Her laughter was contagious, and you couldn't help but feel drawn to her energy. I often saw her with a man, a tough-looking guy with an expensive car. Their relationship seemed intense. The entire block once witnessed a loud argument between them. Jealousy, accusations, the whole drama. After that, the guy vanished for almost a month, and she became visibly downcast. It was strange to see such a vibrant, sweet woman so sad. Then one evening, I bumped into her at the store near our building. She was at the checkout bagging her groceries. It looked heavy, so without thinking, I reached over and grabbed the bags from her delicate hands. "Let me help you out." I smiled and winked. "These are pretty loaded, and we're both headed in the same direction." "Thank you," she replied softly. "Do you live around here?" "Yeah," I nodded, offering a casual shrug. "I try to buy everything in one go to avoid coming back out later. But I guess I misjudged it," she said, a little embarrassed. "Hey, the weather's nice. We can take a walk if you want," I suggested. She didn't say much, just sighed, as if carrying more than just the groceries. "I'm Lincoln," I said, trying to break the ice. "Violet," she introduced herself, her voice a little quieter than before. "Don't think I'm always like this. I'm just going through a tough time. I broke up with my boyfriend. He cheated on me," she added bitterly. My words slipped out of my mouth. "Any guy who lets someone like you leave is crazy. But time heals, it's getting better." To be honest, I didn't know what else to say. We didn't talk much more that evening, but I walked her to her door and handed her my number. A couple of days later, she called. We went for a walk and talked. I could already tell she seemed lighter, more relaxed. During our next date, her energy was completely different. Flirting, happy, the sadness gone. We began seeing each other more regularly, and it just worked for both of us. She could disappear for a week, then call me at 2 a.m. just to go out and talk. We didn't make any plans, didn't overthink things. Spontaneous dates became our thing, and we spent entire weekends together without discussing our future. Then came the day she told me she was pregnant. It was a shock, but an exciting one. I was happy, but I also didn't know how to react. When I asked her to marry me, she didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said, her face lighting up. Her pregnancy, however, wasn't easy. Violet became emotional and nervous, often upset. She cried a lot, and sometimes she had to go to the hospital. I stayed up all night, pacing outside the windows, calling the doctor nonstop, checking in to make sure everything was okay. When Violet was finally discharged from the hospital, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. But just my luck. My boss decided to send me on a business trip to a nearby city. The pay was good, and with the wedding and baby on the way, any extra income certainly wouldn't hurt. Violet reassured me that she was feeling fine. Still, I left with a heavy heart, knowing something wasn't quite right. My gut was telling me it wasn't over yet. A few days into the trip, I tried calling Violet every morning, but for some reason, I couldn't get through. When I finally did, it wasn't her voice on the other end. It was a strange woman's voice. "Violet lost the baby," she said, "and I honestly don't remember how I made it back home." I rushed to the hospital as fast as I could. They let me in, and I found Violet inconsolable. She was sobbing, and I just held her, trying to comfort her the best I could, silently crying along with her. A doctor passed by in the hallway, looking worn out and distant. I couldn't help myself. I rushed up to him. "Charles," I called out, grabbing his arm in a panic. "What happened? You said everything would be fine." "Yes, I did," the doctor replied coldly, almost without emotion. "But I also asked you to be careful. No sexual activity while there is even the slightest risk of miscarriage. Couldn't you have done something? I demanded, my anger bubbling up. "You just let it happen?" The doctor slowly shook his head without answering. I stood there stunned. His words made no sense. I went home trying to calm down. Of course, it wasn't his fault. Doctors have their own way of hiding their mistakes, right? I tried to convince myself that it wasn't my fault, but sleep wouldn't come. My thoughts were too muddled. After a while, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the keys and headed straight to the apartment. What I found there sent a rush of anger through me. The place looked like a war zone. Empty bottles, cigarette butts, and a lingering scent of a man I didn't recognize. I could barely hold myself together. I wanted to confront her right then and there, call her out for her betrayal. But I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything in one moment of weakness. Violet was discharged a few days later. I picked her up and we drove back home. When I took her bag, she suddenly turned pale and moaned. "I feel terrible. I think I need to stay with you." I didn't say anything. I just quickened my step, and she followed me, her pace faltering. When we reached the door, she froze. "I forgot my keys," she said, glancing at me. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "I don't know how it happened. My ex kept calling, begging me to come back, saying he realized his mistakes and wanted to marry me. I couldn't decide whether to stay with you or go back to him. When you left, he came over and, well, things just happened." I stood there, frozen, my heart sinking. Everything I thought I knew about us, about her, seemed to shatter in that moment. The words didn't make sense at first. I wanted to shout, to tell her how much this hurt, but instead, I felt a numbness that made my hands tremble. Her voice cracked, the weight of her confession hanging in the air. You went back to him?" I managed to say, my voice coming out colder than I intended. She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I didn't know what to do, Lincoln. I was confused. I thought I loved you. But then he came back and I just couldn't decide. I couldn't even look at her. The woman I had been building a life with, the one who had made me feel like I was finally moving forward, was standing in front of me, broken, lost, and tangled in a past I wasn't a part of. I took a deep breath, squeezing out the words even though it felt like they were suffocating me. "I can't do this anymore, Violet. I can't keep fighting for someone who doesn't even know where he belongs." Her face crumpled, and she reached out as if trying to touch me, but I stepped back. "Lincoln, please don't leave me." I looked at her, and for the first time in months, I felt completely detached. "I'm not leaving you. You've already left me." The silence between us stretched. She stared at me, and for the first time, I saw the cracks in her sadness, her own vulnerability, her own confusion. But I was too far gone. The man I was a year ago, the one who would have rushed to comfort her, was no longer there. He had been replaced by someone who was tired, who had given all of himself and had nothing left to give. "I think it's over," I said softly, finally breaking the tension. Her lip trembled, but she didn't say anything more. She just nodded, and it felt like the end of everything. The life I had imagined with her, the future I thought we'd build, evaporated in an instant. I didn't wait for her to say anything else. I grabbed my things, walked out the door, and never looked back. So guys, if you all liked today's story, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon. Thank you for watching.